Hey guys, Grotto One here. So, hey, a while back somebody asked me about that rubber hose that I've got on top of my carburetor, and you can see it behind me there. It's that black hose, and it's kind of hooped over the top of my carburetor. So we're going to have a look at that and a couple of other tips I got for you guys. And so let's get started with some of this stuff. This is actually made by Quick Fuel, this carburetor. However, those boys, they don't build all of the components for this carburetor, but they do build a lot of the stuff. You can see here it says Holley Dominator. So what they do is they use the main body from the Dominator, and you know, they do their polishing and all that. You can see here they've got their own boosters, and they have their own metering blocks and their own fuel bowls. And one thing I like about these bowls is the sight glass. And if you look right here, I see I can actually look right through the carburetor right to the other side. This is a really nice big sight glass. A standard Holley Carb isn't nearly as nice. So very handy for setting the fuel level. And these here are Jiffy tight fittings. I really like those. It's kind of like a hydraulic fitting, you know, except in aluminum. And you know, you just pull them back like that, and you can pop your fuel lines off, and then bang, your carb is off, and you can work on it, you know. Okay, so let's have a look at the top of the carburetor here. And here's that hose that started it all for this video. And so I'm going to pull it off of here. It's a pretty snug fitting hose, and that's important because I don't want it coming off when I'm running the engine. And so what we're looking at here is a vent for the fuel bowl, and there's a vent at either end. There's one here and there's one for that one. And so what happens sometimes when the car takes off, you know, with the trans brake and drag slicks and all that, the car will take off hard enough that the fuel will suddenly, you know, be shocked backwards and kind of slosh up and pop out of the vent here and then drop into the carburetor in a way that it's not needed, and it can cause the engine to stumble. So what I do is I use this hose, and that way it's I would say it's, you know, pretty well impossible for any fuel to suddenly get forced back and up. You know, it would have to get all the way up to the top here and then somehow find its way out of this little hole that I made here. So both bowls are still vented. However, the chance of getting the fuel, you know, unexpectedly into the main body of the carb is, you know, basically nil. So it's really handy also for like any, you know, if you're in the rocks or a mud bog, that kind of thing. It's a nice, and it's, you know, basically free. So let's go look at a carburetor that I got on the bench, and we're going to take it apart a little bit, and then it will make a little more sense how this vent works. Okay, so I've got an old Holley laying around here, and there's 4 screws at the back of the bowl, and I've taken 3 of them off already, so we'll do one more. And we're gonna track down that vent, see where it goes inside the carburetor, and it'll be the same on this one as it is on my Quick Fuel carb. So here's the bowl off. You can see the float right here controlling the fuel level. So I'll set that aside. Here is the metering block, and it's got the jets are right here, and they're all numbered. And here is the power valve, and it's spring loaded, and it only opens under wide open throttle, so it gives additional fuel, you know, under that condition. So, but now have a look at this right here, this little white rectangle. Well, that's part of the vent, and if you look, you can see right through that thing. Hold it at the right angle. See that? See right through? So, and that goes till here, and if I had a little piece of wire, I could slide it up inside that opening, and it would pop right out of this vent here that I have the hose on there on the Firebird, remember? So that's where that all goes. Just figured I'd show you where that is. And I found something on this carburetor. It actually has a problem with the linkage, and I'm going to show you what I found. I'll just put this together first. Sometimes these vent tubes are a little on the short side, and this one is kind of short, and that one looks alright. So this one here, I think at one point I removed this one that was in here. It was real short, and I put in my own longer tube so that I could properly put a piece of hose on there, because that piece of hose comes off and it gets jammed in the linkage and you end up with like wide open throttle. You know, obviously that would be a disaster. Okay, here's what I found. These carburetors work quite well, but they've got to be set up right. And there's a, on the bottom here, there's a diaphragm in here. This is the accelerator pump, and it's connected to the throttle linkage. And as the throttle opens up, it pushes on there and it shoots a sudden burst of fuel right out of this area here. It's called the shooter. So, and it squirts it down the carburetor, and it overcomes kind of a dead spot and on that initial acceleration. So, but if it's not set up right, the engine will stumble, like it'll have a little bog or hesitate. So, and here's what I found. You see the little gap right here? There's a little gap from the linkage to the accelerator pump arm itself. And now what's going to happen is whoever drives this car, he steps on the gas a little bit, and then you know, he has to move it that far before it starts to shoot from the accelerator pump, and that's going to create a hesitation and a frustrated driver. So it's a simple fix. This piece is actually extendable. Just by loosening the ends off, you can actually make this piece longer to fill in this gap, and when it's all said and done, it should be just pressing up against that pump just a little bit like that, so that there's no play in there at all. So let's check my Firebird and see how that one is set up. So I just had a look at mine, and it turns out mine's not perfect either. So I'll show you what I got here. See, I can move the throttle this far, and it turns out that I must have a little bit of play in the linkage by now, and it moves that far without moving this arm for the accelerator pump. See, I can go that far. If I go a little bit more, then the pump starts to move. You see that? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen off this lock nut, and it's going to make this entire rod longer. So watch this. I'll just loosen this off if I can hold the bottom. Yep. Let's give it a little bit. There. See that? Now I just move it like a millimeter, and this arm, it moves immediately. There's no delay in there at all. So one thing I should also check is that when the carb is wide open, that it's not bottoming out the accelerator pump. And it looks like I can move it a little bit extra yet than what the linkage is doing there. So it has room. See? Got her fixed up.